Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's EAC webinar. This is Cassie Stumo. I'm the marketing specialist here at EAC. We will begin today's session with an intro of EAC, and then PTC's technical specialist, Andrew Leedy, will be giving us more information on the software that we can provide as a tool to help you manage all the technical information that you have and how you can leverage it and reuse it to increase productivity. Everyone will receive a recording of this session pending any technical difficulties. Please feel free to drop questions in the chat and we'll answer them after the presentation. So our mission is to transform the way companies design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products. We are not only a value-added reseller for PTC, but we are the #1 solutions provider for PTC in the country, which is something EAC is very proud of. We offer our customers everything they need for product development, such as service lifecycle management software, which helps you create and manage service documentation, product data management software like Windchill, ThingWorx Navigate, and our customizable EAC productivity apps, which helps you to manage internal product data. Go ahead, next slide. We implement the Internet of Things and augmented reality into business strategies to jumpstart initiatives around digital transformation and connecting all things in your company. We assist with design and engineering projects like simulation, reverse engineering, and proof of concepts for our customers, and we offer webinars and PTC certified training courses for continuous learning. We're also a commercial reseller for Formlabs, offering the Form 2, which is an SLA desktop 3D printer that delivers high-resolution parts and prototypes for as low as $3,500. So please keep us in mind. We really have a variety of tools to help your organization save time and money throughout the product development process. Today, though, Andrew will be talking us through ways we can improve our service through the best software options in the product development industry. So go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Leedy. I'm an application engineer here at PTC, and today I will be taking us through Arbortext and our Service Information Manager Suite within Windchill. Both of those are built to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of authoring, managing, and publishing technical information. Now, before I go into the capabilities of the software, I usually take a step back, talk about some of the challenges we're hearing from our customers and that you might be running into as well. Technical service information directly affects the success and revenue of a manufacturer. We're seeing that aftermarket services represent about 24% of total revenue for a manufacturer and contribute to about 40 to 80% of the profit. So there's a lot of interest around this aftermarket service, but we're seeing a lot of difficulties in how you can keep up with that. One of those being low authoring productivity and document inconsistencies. Traditional word processors force authors to manually maintain service documentation, and document formatting and styling is going to vary depending on the author that's actually producing that content. And if you ever need to go through and reproduce or deliver documentation, many times the author is going to find themselves manually typing in content, not really being able to reuse the same verbiage across multiple different service documents. Maybe it's a little bit too difficult to find those. Maybe it's just too difficult to figure out which document has the right wording, so you just rewrite things, which leads to a lot of duplicated effort and work. And overall, the styling of the documents is going to need to be modified depending on where you're actually going to be delivering this. And we're seeing about 30 to 50% of an author's time is spent manually laying out the pages, the text, reproducing work, and reproducing styling that has already been done in the past. And overall, this just leads to poor document quality. The inconsistencies in the verbiage and the formatting just leads to different technical documentation varying from product to product, or even just in how it's being delivered. Overall, we're seeing service information as very monolithic. A service manual is going to contain a lot of overloaded information that conveys information about the product and all its variations, and it's just very difficult to find the product-centric service information that you need to support that particular configuration of the product. Many times we're lacking in revision control and change management, so service documentation can easily become out of date and difficult to manage depending on how segmented out your process is and how far you've gone into having a very good version control system and change management system. And overall, just very limited support for dynamic publishing. With a standard word processor, publishing processes tend to be a very manual process performed by the actual person who authored the content. But the author should be focused on the authoring of the technical content and less on actually how it's being formatted and on the delivery. That's just duplicated work that's being repeated across multiple different authors. It shouldn't be just put on them to do all that every single time. It takes a lot of time away from them. And the last bit here, the last challenge we're seeing is around language translation. It's a very manual process to package things up for a language service provider. All the related documents and all the different manuals that you need to send all need to be sent individually and then packaged up, sent off, and then re-uploaded whenever you get the actual translated versions of this. What we're seeing is very high costs around this. Depending on which region you're doing, depending on the type of manual or the type of publication you're sending off to those, the translation costs can increase drastically based off of how much touch-up might need to be redone to this or how much rework is going to have to be done overall. So to tackle some of these challenges and some more that we might not even mentioned here is our Arbortext and Service Information Manager suite here. So this is the general flow where we're talking about authoring the content in Arbortext. This is an XML topic-based authoring tool, which I'll talk a little bit more about as we go through this demonstration. Managing it in our context-based content management solution, Windchill Service Information Manager, and then tying this all together with our Arbortext publishing engine to publish off your documents in a very easy manner based off of the styles that you want to apply to those the documents you to author in Arbortext. So some general capabilities of this, Arbortext is a structured XML authoring using industry standards. So something like DITA and DocBook, you use those to create your technical information. These use something called DTD. It's a document type definition. And these can be stored and managed in Windchill Service Information Manager that serve as document templates. So as I go through and I say, I want to do a topic, it's going to automatically figure out what is going to be included in the topic and how is that eventually going to be styled whenever this is published off. As I'm authoring here, the key idea, and that's what was going to actually be managed in our service information management solution, is these XML component-based content. And we call this bursting of the XML components. And this allows us to very easily reuse any object that we author once. So I can place and reuse any of the textual information that I've written before. And if I reuse a piece of this document over and over again, like this note that we have here, and I ever update the wording on this, the master note, the one that this all started from, it's going to update in all the locations that I have this tied into. So if you're reusing things all the time, caution statements, these different notes, things that you're going to have in a lot of different manuals, and you want this to be consistent across all of them, burst it out and then reuse it. And we offer a simplified style sheet creation as well. So we have a third part to our Arbortext suite called the Arbortext Styler. That allows us to configure style sheets, and that means an author can author the content one time and then publish to many different types of outputs to control the different formatting. So you might have a style sheet that's deploying to the web, a style sheet that's deploying to a paper manual, whatever it's going to be. You only want to author it once and then just have the style sheet control how it's actually going to look. The second part to this whole thing, not just the Arbortext portion, but the integration with Windchill Service Information Manager. So that is where we provide our formal revision and iteration control of all the technical documentation that we have and that we're trying to manage here. And this is where we can also assign workflow processes for the creation of the content, review the documents for electronic change management, as well as publishing off the final content. This is where this is all managed. Now, this is product-centric and configuration-specific documentation. So it's topic-based documents are organized in a way in which it relates to the actual product and the associated system or subsystems. So on the right, we have our Synergy car. It's going to be split into the things that make sense for this particular product, the accessories, the body, and the chassis. And if you go into the chassis, it's going to have the steering and the analog braking system. And the analog braking system is going to have the, different types of documents from the steering. And this is just how we can organize all the information. From Arbortext Editor and with Windchill Sim, we can leverage embedding 2D and 3D illustrations. So we might be managing in some illustrations from our Create Illustrate module or just some individual pictures in our Windchill system. Those can be directly integrated and pulled into and create a link to our Arbortext data. And if these are SVG graphics or CGM graphics, they can be hotspotted, and different words and phrases can actually be linked up to those hotspotted graphics. Again, the last piece here is the packaging this up for our language translation. So Windchill Sim provides translation management capabilities. This allows us to automatically bundle and package all the technical information that I need to send off to a language service provider. And a key part of those bursted reusable objects is that when we package this all up, it's going to check for those reused objects that might have been contained in multiple publications. And it's not going to send them back off to the language service provider to translate again, because we've already translated that bit. Once we get this back, it's going to link our source language to the translation, so we can import this very easily back into our Windchill service information environment and link it all the way back up to the source document that we have. And we are able to dynamically publish and automatically publish things. So Arbortext publishing engine is going to work alongside our Windchill Service Information Manager to automatically produce the finalized documentation from the workflow processes that we've set up. So that is the very high level of what we're going to be talking about today. So now I have a demonstration that is going to go through authoring the document, managing it within our Windchill service information environment, and then eventually packaging this up for translation at the end of the process. So in this demonstration, we're going to be showing PTC's solution to creating very rich technical documentation in support of servicing your products. So we're logged into our Windchill Service Information Manager environment. We have access to two different areas here, our information and our publication structure. Now, the information structure, which we're going to be looking at first, is basically the encyclopedia of all the service information in support of a particular product or line of products. This is where I organize my product in the systems and subsystems that define it, and then I can navigate that content and get all the way down to the lowest level to see the documentation that we have made in support of any particular category that we have here. So all the documents that I have that relate to the Synergy engine, regardless of what type of Synergy it is, maybe there's a few different configurations that we have here. This is just the encyclopedia where we store all that information. So here's a task, a reference, and a procedure against that. Now I can create new information on the fly anytime I want. So we say that we want a new document here. We select on the content, insert that technical document wherever we want. Here's where we have access to the different dynamic documents that we have, so those DTDs. So if I want to create a topic, a procedure, a concept, or any of the other XML DTDs that I have saved off in Windchill, this allows me to basically kind of start off as a template that I want to start my XML authoring against. So all these DTDs are going to be stored with some pre-configured tags that I can start to author content against. And again, I'll show this just in a second when we open this up. So now it puts that in our information element list against that engine. And I could say, let's open this up in Arbortext editor. An Arbortext editor can run on its own and open this, but it might be easier just to launch this straight from Windchill if we know the exact document we want to be working on. Now, before we work on the content, before we go over what you're actually looking at here, first we're going to take ownership of the content. And that's what we call our check-in, check-out process within Windchill. So check-in, check-out is exactly what it sounds like. I want to check this out. I'm taking ownership of this, and I want to be able to work on it, and then I'm going to check it back in whenever we're all done. Windchill Service Information Manager is going to track the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why, and then provides formal document revision control as I author this content and as I check it back in. So if this was checked out 3 times, it's going to iterate onto that 3rd version of the product, but I still have all access to the other versions that I had checked in. So now we can start to go through and actually populate the document with some textual information. So I have some pre-configured tags that came from the document type definition that we started with. So it started us off with a title, and it gave us a description, gave us some index terms, and then a very general paragraph. It just wants some text to be placed underneath everything. So we can just start to fill this in. So I have my V-belt maintenance. That's going to be the actual piece of the product that we're going to be focusing on. And then I have a short description of that product. So this document describes in detail the maintenance and inspection of my V-belt. And then we also have these index terms that came pre-populated. These are unique terms that can be pulled directly out of the document at the end of this process and placed in a dynamic index that's going to be made in our manual. So I want this V-belt maintenance to be found under the words maintenance, and I want it to be found under the word V-belt as well. So now that's going to automatically populate our index at the entire end of the process. We'll come back to that at the end here. And now it's just about starting to author the body. Now, anytime, and you can see over there on the left, the overall structure of this document. So XML is a structured authoring environment, and it gives us a list of tags that we already have. So I have a body, and whenever you press enter on anything, it's going to display the tags that I can put into a body. So what am I going to put in here? An ordered list, a paragraph. I want to put in a hazard statement, an image. This allows me to kind of pre-configure and control how the particular text that we place in the text, or text that we place in this tag, is going to show up in my document. So something that we might want to be putting in here that we're using in a lot of our different documents is this hazard statement. And some of the tags actually come with some lower level tags. So the type of the hazard, how to avoid. This allows me to, again, have a little more of a structure behind this. So the entire authoring team can follow this structure and author in the exact same manner. So first they're going to say the type of tag and then a list of the consequences that follow. And every single author is going to be held to that. Now again, pressing enter on anywhere I want in the document allows me to place in some tags. So here I have a note, which is going to be configured differently than my hazard statement. And within the note, I have a paragraph. I just want to put some text against this. So now we can just populate this with some text and say exactly what this note is going to be. So since the rear belt is a stretch type belt, does not require tension check and adjustment. Now all these objects that we're placing in and authoring are unique objects, and I can designate them as such. So I can configure Arbortext editor and my Windchill service information manager to create certain types of tags as those reusable bursted out components. So the first step here is putting an ID against this. So this allows it to be its own object within my my content management system. And I can also put some additional properties against it, like some language and translation, or just the name that's going to be referenced against this, so that it has some searchable objects against this as well. So now we're going to keep authoring, and we'll show the bursted components whenever we check this back in. I can turn on my XML tag display at any time. So this looks more like a traditional word processor at this point. The tag display shows a little bit of what's happening under the hood. So this gives me a visual representation of where the text is located, what tag, type of tag it's against, and where those tags end. So on all these different objects, I can see some of even the properties that we have associated with it, like my ID. We're going to flag this for translation and what language is it authored in at this particular moment. I can also put in an ID at the top of the top level of document, and I can redefine any of these tags at any moment. So here we have a new ID and translation requirement that we want to put against the entire document, and not just on some of these individual bursted components that we placed in here. So now we're going to add some more onto this document. So once again, hitting enter anywhere on the page gives me a list of tags on what I can access in that particular location that I pressed enter at. So here we're going to enter in a brand new section for this. This is going to be, we're going to have to first define a new title. This is just going to be a procedure that we're outlining here. And then entering a new tag, we can set maybe another paragraph, or in this case, we might want to do an ordered list. And this always just gives us some predetermined structure behind what that's making. So the list is always going to be configured in the same way. You know, pressing after 1, you're going to get 2, and so on and so forth. And all of this is going to be controlled by our style sheet at the end of the process to determine exactly how this is going to show up. How is my ordered list going to show up? Whenever I make a table, how much spaces are going to be in the table? What are the borders going to look like? All of that, I'm not really concerned about at the moment. I'm just authoring the content, putting all the information that I need to in here, and then the end of the process is going to be controlled by my style sheet. So here we have a table. The table does have a few things that we can configure directly from within Arbortext that might not necessarily be controlled by the style sheet if we don't want to, like how many rows there's going to be, how many columns it's going to have in here, then enter in some textual information and all of that. Maybe in the center here, we're going to put in a graphic, and the graphic can be something just as simple as like a PNG image. It can also be like a Creo Illustrate file if necessary. And if we don't have it, you know, directly within this system, if I want to just like copy and paste it in, I can always search for it from somewhere else as well. And this allows me to search my actual content management solution, Windchill, for the particular object that I want to place into this document. So it allows me to manage all my content in the same area. So I can manage it on Windchill and then just pull it into all the documents that I need to from there. So here I have a C3DI file, which is a Creo Illustrate file. Basically, this is just going to be a 3D graphic that I have made for this particular engine and the V-belt associated with it. And I could choose exactly how I want this graphic to show up. So this basically is a full 3D model at this point, but I do have different figures saved off. Creo Illustrate is our technical illustration tool. So we have a few drawings and a few labels and a few different views that are important for this particular document that I want to include and choose from. So here I have on my figure 3, this is specifically to the V-belt maintenance. I don't want to just have a picture of my whole engine. I want to specifically go down to the V-belt section of that. And that's another interesting part of that is since that we're leveraging off of the standard general standardized content, that means that if there's ever an update onto this illustration, since I am managing this within Windchill, it would actually push that update into this as well. Now for all the objects, we can just keep applying and modifying different types of attributes here as well. And for the tables, we do have a few different things that we can change as well. So like the table properties can be gone through and modified. So do I want to apply margins onto all of this? So this allows me to do a little bit of work ahead of time in Arbortext, as opposed to having this all managed within our style sheet. So here I want to show that we're going to have no borders and a little bit more information about the table that we can modify around. So the last thing to add here is leveraging off of some other standardized content that we might have made. So we pulled in a illustration, but what if I want to include something that we might have already authored before in Arbortext? So once again, I can go up to my search, find it within Windchill Service Information Manager. This allows me to author something once, reuse in many different locations. And again, it's also associative, so it's going to propagate any changes down to this document from this. So we can open this up. I can see that we have a belt is under high tension alert. I can open that into another edit of Arbortext editor to see if that's exactly what I want to place in here. And then I can just very simply insert it in if it is what I want to put in my document. And that allows me to, again, have that revision controlled and have it be driven from somewhere else and just reuse what I've already done before. And you can start to see those little outline around that particular component. That is signifying that it's its own object within Windchill and within this actual Arbortext document that we have here. So now this is ready to be checked back into Windchill. I'm done authoring at this point. So as I go back up here, same process of how we checked it out. This time we choose check in. Check out is obviously going to be grayed out because it's already checked out. So I can check this object back in. I can add a comment if necessary, so exactly what work was done. This allows me to be a little more collaborative with other people, or just at least kind of give me myself a note if I come back to this on exactly what was done for this. So this has completed the A.1 version of the document. I can save that off, and that's going to check it back into Windchill. And as I do this, you're going to notice that all the objects that I gave unique IDs to are going to have those outlines around them now, just like that warning statement does. This is signifying that those are bursted objects and that they're going to be ready for reuse. And there's even going to be a structure to this XML document that we can take a look at here as well. So navigating back to the Windchill Service Information Manager, I can access this document that we had just written. And within that document, we have that structure, and we can look at the information related against that. So I can see all the alerts and the notes and the tables that I had signified with an ID. They're going to be bursted out. And we have our top level document, the V-belt maintenance, but I also have 4 documents beneath that that are kind of those bursted out objects that are going to be individually version controlled as well. So I might have something that's on a completely different version that, that alert that we have brought in, maybe that had been revised a few times and I just reused it. It's going to have completely different reversion to the top level document. And even going down further, we can see in my table, we also have our illustration that was tied directly into this as well. Now over to my representation tab, I have the ability to access this published content, and I can configure Windchill Service Information Manager to work alongside my Arbortext publishing engine, which is a dynamic publishing engine. Basically allows me to leverage off of any of the documents that I have stored in Windchill and submit that information off for publishing. So here I have it configured that as soon as I upload this, it's automatically going to publish off a representation of this. And we just had a very simple style sheet applied against that. That controls the look and the feel. Again, it looked kind of similar to what it did in Arbortext, but I have control over exactly how the font is going to be made. Are certain things going to be bolded out? Are they going to be italicized, underlined, whatever it's going to be, the same styles that you're normally applying in any other management solution. Now I can navigate up to my information structure. So this shows, just to show some additional functionality here. So if we select on the engine cooling system, I can see a couple documents that represent the overheating for 2 separate models of this. So not just one model of this energy car. I have the sport model and then the regular model of this. And I want to configure the documentation groups to be product-centric and configuration specific. So we can do that with managing the applicability. So I can see specifically what serial numbers or model that the document actually applies to. And I can use this to kind of the magic here is toggling and using filters that I can filter down to the specific model or serial number that I'm concerned with. So it's gonna, if I apply one of those filters for the sport car, it's going to get rid of all the other documents that are unrelated to the sport version of this and allow me just to see the information that's applicable to the filter that I've applied. Now, another area of my windshield service information manager solution is the publication structure. So this is the second type of structure we have. This basically allows me to create manuals or organize the products as they would in a manual. So not just be an encyclopedia of all the information, but now I want to produce a specific manual, the engine service manual. Let's grab all the documents associated against that. We populate this structure by accessing my information structure. So that's kind of the encyclopedia. That's really, the first step here is populate the encyclopedia and then pull all that information for my product or for the subset of products into the particular manual that we have here. And I could dig into that structure. And then really it's just as easy as dragging and dropping that information directly into the publication structure that I want to. So here I have to add in the cooling system information for the sport model and for the regular model of my car as well. Now, what we typically do for something like this is we overload this particular document. And we overload it because of the ability to apply filters. So I want all the different configurations for this engine in this publication structure. And then when I publish, I can specify, okay, only do publish off for this document, the ones that correspond to this serial number, for this document, the ones that correspond to the other serial number. So this allows me to use those same applicability options to filter our publications as well. And then we have our V-belt maintenance. Check this back in. Now we can say that this engine service manual is all completed here. We can see all the different documents that have been associated against this. So now we can look at this representation tab. So this allows me to publish off representations if I want to. But first we might want to filter down to a specific level. So maybe I want to publish the book solely for the DX model of my car. And this is just going to be like the non-sport version. And I could also use workflows and automated processes to publish this content. I don't have to apply the filters and then click publish with representation. I can have all that set up manually or not as manual in the background. So we're going to be creating two different types of service manuals for the two different types of models for this. And I can say let's just publish it off with a PDF with my default style sheet. Maybe this document will be solely for the DX model. Then we might want to open up the sport model as well and then publish that off. We could choose exactly what languages it's going to be published off as. Again, also maybe the publishing rules. So now it's just in PDF, but there are a few other deliverables we can do as well. So now I have two different types of manuals for the two different types of cars that we have here. And over in my representations tab, I can see exactly what was published against this particular publication structure. So here I have the engine service manual for one version of this, and we can see exactly what it made for us automatically. So it created a table of contents automatically for us, and it organized the information as I had it organized within my publication structure. And then at the way end of this, we also have our index with all the index terms that we had selected that we want to be searched on as well. Now, just to look at the sport version, again, it was basically just a very simple process to be able to get the sport and the regular version, the DX model of this car. But we can see there are some differences in this, and that's because this is a dynamic publishing engine. I didn't have to author this entire content and put it in its entire own file. I have it all managed, and then I'm just basically just doing that publishing and dynamically creating the document on the fly based off of what information I want to include in it. So here I have the overheating of the cooling system for the sport, and then just the standard overheating of the cooling system for the DX model. Now the last bit here, and I know we're coming up to the half-hour mark, but this last bit is just going to be focused on the language translation capabilities here. So we have the ability to access our translation dashboard and use built-in workflows for translation management. And we do not need to actually do the translation. Windchill isn't translating this on its own. It's more bundling up and packaging the information for translation. And I could see some of the information that's already been translated previously from before, and all these have different links that go to the original source English version of this, or whichever source language that you had originally authored everything in. But I want to create a new translation package to send this off. And this could be sent off to a specific vendor or a group of vendors if necessary. And I'm only sending off the information that needs to be translated. So once again, those bursted objects, the objects I'm reusing, they may have already been translated in the past. So it's not going to package those together. It's going to check for anything that has already been authored before. So that package, once we decide exactly what it's going to be, we can submit it off, ready to be sent off to the language service provider, whoever that's going to be. And I can always check on the status in Windchill here, so I can see if it's in translated, if it's already been translated and re-imported back in. So when they do send it back and I re-import it back into Windchill, it's going to give me that translated translation status, or it's going to change the translation state to released, however I want to configure Windchill to specifically show me that. So here, if I go over to my French version, so maybe I just sent this over to be translated to French, I can see that it's translated now. And again, all these that have links back up to the original source object for this. Now I can also use this to kick off different publishing processes, not just to make our standard models here, but I might want to use some of the same characteristics that we did before, just to make our or the same properties in our publishing, just to make the French version of this. So instead of choosing English, we say it's going to be French. It's going to look for all the French versions of the documents that I had translated, and it's going to produce automatically for me the French manual, which is going to be stored against this representation as well, since it is part of the engine service manual publication structure. And here we have in my actual publishing engine, this time it's going to be the same information, but with the French equivalent of this that we had sent off to our language service provider. So that is the demonstration I have on Windchill Service Information Manager. Since we are coming up on the end of the time here, I don't want to spend too much time recapping everything, but basically the only thing I want to say left is that this is our two solutions combined together that we're hoping are going to increase the efficiency of your authors and allow them to manage and publish technical information a lot easier.
Awesome. Thank you,
I can
Andrew.
pass it back off to you, Casey, if you have any last statements to say.
Sure. Yeah, I just want to quickly mention that we have a few webinars coming up this month. If you are looking for more information on a program that can handle your engineering calculations, PTC is hosting a MathCAD webinar on the 22nd. We're hosting a webinar that will accompany two PTC guests that will show us how technicians can use a product called Vuforia Chalk for powerful remote guidance. And then lastly, we are starting a new short webinar series for those that are already using PTC's products and need a little more guidance or helpful tips on how to use them. This one is on the 24th, and it will demonstrate how to use Windchill's multifaceted search techniques. I don't see any questions today, so I'll wrap it up, but please reach out to me if you have any further questions. Or would like to talk more about what you've seen today from Andrew's presentation. I'll be sending additional resources out along with the recording of the webinar shortly here. So thank you again, everyone, for joining, and have yourself a